Hello, seekers and manifestors. It's ZMAHOON here again with a video about understanding the law of attraction. Today, we are going to talk about the emotional scale. The concept of the emotional scale was first introduced by Abraham Hicks, and I absolutely love it because it really puts everything into perspective and makes it easy to understand and apply the law of attraction, which is what we all want to do because, like me, I'm sure you want to improve your lives. What the emotional scale does is very simple. It puts all emotions on a scale that goes from despair, which is when you're saying things like, nothing's working in my life, I feel stuck, that's despair, and it goes all the way up to joy or love, which is the highest emotion. This love, the feeling of love, is where source is. So if you feel love, if you're in love with life, if you look at everyone and feel love for them, then you're looking at everything and everyone the way source looks at them, the way the universe looks at them. So love is really important. And then what Abraham does is that they put all emotions on this scale and they line them up. So at the bottom, we have despair, which goes to insecurity or jealousy, hatred, rage, revenge, anger, discouragement, blame, worry, doubt, disappointment, overwhelmment, frustration, pessimism, boredom, contentment, hopefulness, optimism, positive expectation, enthusiasm, passion, and joy. I like to do things a little bit differently. So I have to say that I like to simplify things. And so what I've done is I've just divided the scale into two. Joy and despair are the two ends. And then in the middle, as far as I'm concerned, is worry. This divides the scale into two halves, the positive half and the negative half. And I like to use a scale of 1 to 10 because it's just easy. I think that we're all used to measuring things on a scale of 1 to 10. So in my mind, it makes it easy to measure emotional output on a scale of 1 to 10 as well, where despair to me is actually like a 0 and joy is a 10. Worry is a 5. So on any given day, I can ask myself, how am I feeling? Do I feel like a 10? Do I feel like a 5? Do I feel like a 0? And it just makes it much easier because I find that we have our own personal emotional scales. And my emotional scale is not necessarily like yours. When I feel despair, it may or may not be the way you feel despair. What I call worry might not be what you call worry. So the scale is really meant for you. It's about you feeling like a 10 and you feeling like a 5. The reason it's good to know this is because we are always reaching here. We are always reaching for joy because anything that we want to get in life is about being happy. So if we're not feeling happy, if I wake up in the morning and I feel like a 2, that means I need to do something in order to get myself higher on the scale. I may not get all the way to 10, but I'm sure as hell going to try. And the way we get from being here to here is by thinking thoughts that make us feel better. It's our thoughts that generate emotions. So that's an important thing to remember, that emotions are generated by thoughts. And so by thinking thoughts, we can create an emotional shift, and we can go up the emotional scale. Now, why is this important, you ask? Are you asking that question? If you're not, I'll ask it for you. Why is it important to head for joy? The reason it's important to head for joy is because joy is where the best things are. The best manifestations happen at joy. I'm going to put a triple A here. It's not that manifestations are not happening at the level of despair or worry or anger or frustration. Manifestations are happening all the time. It doesn't matter where you are on the emotional scale, but the manifestations that take place when you're at joy are a triple A. Manifestations that take place when you're at worry are just an A. And when you're over here at despair, well, guess what? Nothing's happening. No A's there at all. And so that's why we always want to reach for joy. If you find yourself feeling like anger, if you're angry, you have to do something to shift your attention from the thing that makes you angry so that you can go up the emotional scale. You know why? Because if you stay at anger, so let's say this is anger, and let's say anger is a 3, then all the manifestations that take place are going to correspond to anger. You're going to attract manifestations that are on the same emotional wavelength as anger. Now imagine, just taking this concept a step further, imagine that this is the field of all possibilities. Anything is possible. All possibilities, good and bad, exist. And they all exist simultaneously. But what you access out of the field of all possibilities depends on where you are on the emotional scale. If you're over here at anger, you cannot manifest something that's over here lined up with joy. At anger, you're only going to attract things that correspond with that vibrational frequency. But if you could improve the way you feel and go up to joy, now the type of manifestations that will happen in your world, in your life, are going to be things that make you really happy. And that's why it's important to go up the emotional scale. That's why you should never take it for granted when you're feeling despair. That's why you should always do something to shift your attention if you're feeling angry. So let's talk about how that happens. We go up the emotional scale by changing our self-talk. Our self-talk is what we need to control in order to go up the emotional scale. Let's take an example. Let's say that somebody is rude to you. The only reason somebody is rude to you is because you were not over here at a place of joy. You must have been somewhere over here at anger or frustration in order for you to attract something like that. So when somebody is rude to you, it's the universe reflecting back to you where you are on the emotional scale. It's telling you you're not at a 10. And so you need to do something in order to go up the emotional scale. What are you going to do? Well, what you do is you soothe yourself by saying things like, it's okay. This is just the universe telling me that I need to do something in order to improve my vibration. And if you just said something simple like that, it would take you just a notch up. And then the next thing you could say is, things always get better. I'm a good person, and I know that that person who was angry with me is also a good person. They're probably just having a bad day. Next time we interact, things could be better. So you see how when you have soothing self-talk, you go up the emotional scale. You need to go up the emotional scale to an extent where you can actually let go of the event that happened and be able to send that person love and joy by blessing them, by saying good things about them. So we soothe ourselves with our self-talk. And when we soothe ourselves, we can go up the emotional scale. And when we are up here, we line up with things that we want. The interesting thing about all of this is that where you are on the emotional scale controls everything that manifests for you. So if you could stay here, then not only would your health get better, not only would your emotions get better, you would feel better, your relationships will improve, your abundance, prosperity, money coming in will improve, your level of happiness and self-confidence with yourself, your self-worth will improve. Everything is a reflection of where we are on the emotional scale, and all subjects in our life respond based on where we are accessing this field of all possibilities from. There are two really important things that I want to leave you with at the end. The first one is where you are on the emotional scale is what determines your manifestations on all subjects in life. And the second one is wherever you spend most of your time, that's where you create more momentum. Momentum means that you create a pathway to access the field of all possibilities from that place. And that becomes a habit. It just becomes easier to get into that gear because that's what you're used to. The side effect of this phenomena is that we don't really remember what joy feels like. And so when things get just a little bit better and we go from anger a couple of notches up the emotional scale, you can see that you're still below the worry line. However, you feel so much better that you think that you're at joy. And that's what goes wrong with a lot of people who are trying to manifest things. They go up a few notches and they think they're over here, but they're not. And they start looking for manifestations that correspond to being here, but they're not getting those manifestations. They're getting these manifestations. And then they start asking, well, why isn't it working? Law of attraction isn't working for me. The only thing that you ever need to do if you feel that way is to tell yourself that you still need to improve your self-talk. It all has to do with your self-talk. It all has to do with what you're thinking about your life and about other people and things in your life. And as long as your manifestations are still happening here in this part of the emotional scale, if you're having manifestations here, then it is certain that you have not done what you need to do in order to cross the worry line and go into this positive region of the emotional scale so that you can start getting the things that you want. So that's it, folks. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. If you enjoyed this presentation, leave a comment to let me know. And subscribe to my channel because I will be posting short videos like this that help us improve our understanding of how the law of attraction works. Bye for now.